Do you ever wonder what's really going on in government, locally, in the state of Tennessee, and across the country? I'm Tennessee State Senator Bo Watson, and on Tennessee Today, we dive into the issues that shape our communities, from local policy to national debates. Each episode, I break down key topics and issues, share my perspective from over 20 years in the Tennessee legislature, and talk with guests about the decisions that impact your daily life. I hope you enjoy these honest conversations and that they help you stay informed and engaged. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to Tennessee Today wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Hey folks, this is Tennessee State Senator Bo Watson. Welcome back to another episode of Tennessee Today. Before we get into today's show, I want to remind you, would you please click the subscribe button? It really helps promote the show. Also helps us with feedback from our listeners. So if you get a moment and you enjoy the show, please reach down there on the screen and click subscribe. Today we have with us on Tennessee Today, April Cameron. April is president, executive director? What's the exact term for the Chattanooga Metropolitan Airport
President and CEO.
President and CEO
Yes.
of what we around town just call the Chattanooga Airport.
Absolutely.
But officially is the Chattanooga Metropolitan Airport?
Uh-huh.
Probably, and you kind of work for the Chattanooga Metropolitan Airport Authority.
That's correct.
Right? Created by the state of Tennessee.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, we do most of the heavy work around. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. April is in charge of all the operations at the airport, particularly how the airport functions within our community. So we're going to have a conversation today about how important airports are in terms of not just improving lifestyles for folks, but also on the economic and community development side of the equation. And that's why the state really invests and tries to invest heavily in our airports. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about April Cameron and get a little bit of your story. So how is it that now, did you grow up in Ray County?
I did. I grew up in Ray County, lived my whole life there, went to Ray County High School.
Golden Eagles, go
Yes,
Eagles.
Yes, go Eagles. And then ended up going to UTC from there.
Now, did you live in Dayton?
I actually grew up in Spring City.
So did you go to Spring City
Yes.
Middle School?
Elementary.
Yeah, because back in the day, there was a big rivalry between Spring City and Dayton.
Still there.
Yeah,
Yes.
But then they moved the high school to Evansville, right?
Yes.
And so then you had the two groups coming together. What was, do you remember Spring City? Was it Bulldogs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How about that? That's a pretty good get, isn't it?
Yes.
The Bulldogs.
That's really good.
Yeah. And was it Ray County or was it Dayton City? Do you remember who they're?
So there's Dayton City and there's also Ray Central.
Okay.
So Dayton had 2 elementary schools and Spring City had 1.
This has absolutely nothing to do with airports,
I
but it's
understand.
really kind of important because eagles fly.
Yes,
right?
they
so
do fly.
Making the connection there. So you went to Ray County, then went to UTC. What did you major in at UTC?
So I majored in accounting.
Okay.
I felt like business degrees, you can do a lot with a business degree, and I love numbers. I love money. I love budgeting, and so accounting was just a natural fit.
So I was a science and chemistry, biology and chemistry person, and I took accounting because my dad said it would be good for me. And I took organic chemistry, microbiology, all this kind of stuff, and accounting was I was terrible. It was so hard.
It's so funny because I find accounting to be relatively easy. But my daughter also studied the same courses that you studied, chemistry and anatomy and all those courses, and she took an accounting class and she felt the same way you did.
Well, I have a theory on that because one day you go to accounting and something that was a credit the day before is the debit the next day, right?
Yes.
In the science world, a rock one day is still a rock the next day.
That's a good point.
But in accounting, a debit is a debit one day, a credit the next day, and I could never regress. The other thing was back when I was in school, which UTC, class of 83, we didn't have computers and stuff to help us. So everything was pencil and paper. And if you made a mistake in your balance sheet somewhere, it was heck to try and figure out where your mistake was.
That is correct. And I actually went through the exact same thing.
Yeah.
At pencil and paper, much different now.
Yeah. So you graduate with it. Now, did you ever go to work in accounting, or what happened to you? How did you end up at the airport?
So when I was in school at UTC, I started working. I worked all through college. I worked at Sequoia Nuclear Plant. I started there the day after I graduated high school, worked there for a little bit. Then I went to a bank and worked for a while. And while I was working at the bank, I was going to UTC, and I met a lady that worked at the airport. And so she approached me and said, I'm looking for someone to help me. Would you be interested in working at the airport? And I thought, well, that'd be really cool, a really fun job to work at the airport. So I applied, she hired me, and I started working at the airport, processing payroll and accounts payable. So I started at the very bottom of the accounting ring.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So for someone who, like me, who's not familiar with how airports actually operate and everything, there are probably more than two, but there's kind of two aspects to the airport, right? Mm-hmm. There's like the airport business, which is, the money coming into the airport from all these different sources. And then there's the planes coming in and out
Absolutely.
of the airport.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do they have distinct names? Like is one called operations and another called something else?
Sure. There's finance and admin, and there's operations.
Okay.
So yes.
So like many other businesses.
Absolutely.
So you start working, you're doing payroll. How do you move from that? Besides just spending a lot of time there,
yes.
years there,
yes.
move that to becoming the executive, the president and CEO?
So that was actually never really my intention. I went to the airport with the
Are you
plans.
like the first woman to be the CEO?
Yes, I actually am.
I want to say that this show has had more firsts than virtually any show. I mean, we've had the first female U.S. Senator, Marsha Blackburn. We had she'll probably be the first female elected governor of the state of Tennessee. We have the first chancellor at UT Chattanooga that's a female.
That's wonderful.
I have the first executive director, president / CEO of the airport here. And I guess it's because I have 4 older sisters.
Oh.
So I'm used to women being in charge. And so I guess I just innately invite women who are in charge to be on my show. So
Wonderful.
that's cool. So you're you go through accounting, you are doing payroll. How do you get to where you are?
So I had no intentions of staying at the airport for a long period of time. My goal was to go in, get some experience, and then move on to another opportunity. And so the problem is when you get into an airport, it sucks you in, and it's very difficult to get out. It's a career that you just fall in love with. I went to the airport and absolutely fell in love with every aspect of it. No day was the same as the day before. And so I loved the opportunities that I was given in this position. Being at a small airport, you also get an opportunity to participate in everything. When you're a small organization, you don't just serve one role. You participate in lots of different roles, as you would know. And so I had the opportunity to see so many aspects of the business and was able to participate in so many things. So during my time, I worked under 4 different presidents. And so I learned a lot of management styles that I liked and knew things that I probably would do differently, and had the opportunity to learn all about the operational side and the business marketing. And then now I'm learning more about the political side. So it's just having those opportunities presented and taking advantage of the opportunities that are given. And so that's really how I got there. And so when it came time for my predecessor to retire, he approached me and he said, you're the next logical choice. You've been here a long time. You understand how it works. You know what needs to be done. And so I found after a lot of conversations, that this was the direction to go. And so I made that decision, and I'm so grateful that I did, because it's really been a fantastic transition for me. So many of the characteristics that you have as a CFO, they transfer over into the CEO role. And so I think that made it a little bit easier transition.
Yeah, yeah. That's a great story. Talking about the structure of the airport, I think for people listening, so like the people who work at the baggage check, or
Yes.
the people who work around the counter, those aren't airport employees,
That's
are they?
correct. That's correct. Most people don't realize that an airport is really like a small city. We have a fire department, a police department, maintenance department, operations, and admin. All of the people that work for that handle your bags, that check you in, those are airline employees. All of the rental car employees are employees of those companies. So the airport itself is very similar to a city.
Yeah. I think, and sometimes people, obviously people like me who don't know exactly how an airport operates, we want somebody to yell at, right, because something happened. And it's not the Metropolitan Airport's fault. It's actually the carrier, whoever that might be. So when I was a little kid, we used to go out there a lot.
Oh, yes.
Because my dad worked for a Provident life insurance company and flew out frequently and flew back in frequently. Back then, I guess the two big airlines were Eastern Airlines, which no longer exists, and Delta was there even then. What airlines come into the airport now?
So currently we have the three legacy carriers, Delta, American, and United. And we also have low-cost carrier Allegiant.
Low-cost carrier. I like that.
Yes.
So that's kind of a regional. Would there be a regional airline?
Actually, no. They cover the entire country, and they actually even have some international routes now. But they go point to point, where the legacy carriers go hub and spoke. So they'll take you from your starting point through a hub to your destination. Allegiant and other low-cost carriers will typically go point to point.
Yeah. I'm probably asking you a question now, but how does an airline decide to do that? How does an airline decide to be, I'll call them a hub airline versus a point-to-point airline?
Well, typically, the legacy carriers, they've been in business a long time. When the low-cost carriers come in to a market, they're looking to serve a market that's not already currently filled. They don't want to compete with legacy carriers. So that's why they are looking to see, how much traffic do you have going to this smaller market? They typically go to smaller markets as well. So that way they don't have to take you through a hub system. They can get you there quicker and more cost effectively, and that allows them to charge lower fares.
So since the engine behind the airport are the airlines, what does an airport need to have in order to attract these airlines to them?
So I think some of the most important thing when an airline is making a decision on whether they want to serve your airport, the first and foremost, the data has to be there. You have to be able to prove that you have a sufficient number of people going to those markets. And the airlines know all that data. They know who's flying where and how they're getting there and all of that information. As an airport, what we do is we want to, first of all, build relationships with the airlines. And second of all, we want to communicate things to them that they don't know about our community. So, and then on top of that, you want to have a very cost-effective cost structure so that they can come to your airport and be successful and make money, because ultimately they want to make money. So the first thing that we focus on is keeping our cost structure low. So we don't take on a lot of debt at the airport because we want the fees that we charge the airlines to come in, we want those to be low.
So you have, for an airline to use our airport, they got to pay you to use it.
They do. They pay every time they land. They pay for rental for the use of the terminal building. So there's lots of different fees that they pay. So first of all, we want our fee structure to be very cost effective for them.
Because if you charge less, they can charge less for the ticket.
That's right. And they can also make more money So airports are always wanting to have a very low cost per enplanement is what they call it. So that's the first thing. But then after that, we want to build relationships. We want the airlines to know who we are. We want Chattanooga to be the first place they think of when they have an airplane to place. They can put their asset anywhere and make money. We want to prove to them that Chattanooga is the place for that airplane to go.
But part of that low cost structure is would be based on passenger volume, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, because the more people you can get on the plane, the more you can spread the cost out, and then the overall cost per unit goes down.
Absolutely. So there's lots of components that go in there. So we're building relationships with the airlines. We're constantly communicating to them what's happening in our community. Do we have a business development opportunity that's coming up that could bring more jobs to Chattanooga, which could provide more usage of the flights? Mm-hmm. Is there a tourist attraction that would draw more people into Chattanooga? We're constantly communicating that to them. And then lastly, something that I think an airport really needs to have is a strong community connection. When airlines meet with us and they meet with our community, they can gauge whether we're all on the same page. And it's really important for the community to be on the same page with the airport. And that's why, having a strong community trust is important to us, because the airlines can sense that.
So in a unusual way, the more that people in and around Chattanooga use our airport, the more airlines look at our airport, but B is the lower the cost actually becomes, right?
Yes.
I mean, the more people you have that utilize that airport and utilize that airline, then you start to spread those costs out. Mm-hmm. And as you're able to do more and more of that, you can continue to drive the cost down.
Right.
Even though you're maybe getting more destinations assigned.
Absolutely.
See, I did pay attention in accounting. Or kind of. That'd be economics. I paid attention in there too.
You
but
did.
Yeah. Okay, so that's an interesting kind of cost structure, the way that works. Now, today, to a layperson like me looking at the airport, the airline industry, there seems to be a real emerging private side of air travel. At your airport, our airport, there is Wilson Air. What role do y'all play with Wilson Air?
So the interesting thing about our airport is we own the fixed-based operator. So a fixed-based operator is where private and corporate airplanes go to be fueled, and also for hangar space. And so in Chattanooga, we own the FBO, which is somewhat unusual in the airport world. It was a good decision for us to build all of that infrastructure ourselves, and we hired Wilson Air Center to be the management company that handles managing that on our behalf, because they have the experience with running an FBO, but we wanted to own the assets because we really wanted to, from a private and corporate aviation, general aviation, that FBO is the front door to your community. And so it was really important for us to kind of control that experience. We wanted the facilities to be nice. We wanted the rates to be competitive, and we wanted the customer service experience to be really strong. And so we built that out ourselves. We hired them to manage it on our behalf. But it's really been an important thing for us to control that experience. And also it provided the airport another revenue source, which has been a tremendous asset for our airport.
Yeah. So every time I go to the airport and fly out of the airport,
yes.
which, I don't travel a lot, but I travel enough. First of all, thanks for the direct flight to Chicago. That's
yes.
one of my favorite cities to go visit.
Good.
The parking lot is always full.
Yes.
And I know y'all are now beginning an edition of a new thing. So tell me a little bit about our capacity at Chattanooga. Do we still have capacity, or are we having to build and add capacity?
So if I can give you a little history, back in 2020, in 2019, we had a really strong year. We had set new records. So we decided that we needed to build a parking garage. So in 2020, we got approval from our board to build a parking garage, and then COVID hit. and there were no cars in the parking lot. So we decided to move forward with that construction project, and we built that parking garage when no one was at the airport. So while we were building that parking garage, we also started design of our terminal expansion. So with that terminal expansion, we added 2 gates, a new set of restrooms, we expanded TSA checkpoint, lots of great things. And we did that because we knew that growth was coming. We had already experienced it. COVID set us back a little bit from our growth, but we knew it was coming back. And so we went ahead and moved forward with those growth projects because it's really, infrastructure takes a long time to develop. And a small airport, we're very cognizant of our cost. We don't want to take on a lot of debt that I mentioned earlier, and so we've got to be preparing long into the future. So we went ahead and started those projects to get ahead. We did not want to go out and recruit a lot of air service and then have nowhere for the people to go. So we did our expansion project. That was all complete, and then we went out and really started to try to recruit new air service. Now that we're seeing that new air service come into Chattanooga, we're starting to look, okay, what's next steps? We don't want to get into a bind. We don't want to be short in parking, which we were getting a little tight here last year. So we made the decision.
Yeah, I mean, I was out there and I went up like on the second level, and there the little green thing said there were only 2 spots left. The other 2 had 0 spots left. And I'm like, I don't want to park at the top. I guess I can, but I don't want to. So yeah, no, it looks like business is good.
And when we built that garage, I remember having conversations internally amongst our team, and we were like, we will never have to even talk about parking the rest of our careers. And then here, 2 years later, 3 years later, we're building another garage.
Well, that's including, you've got that whole other lot.
Yes.
I would say beside the terminal.
Yes.
But that's just a traditional parking lot.
Absolutely.
That's back there. That's almost always full too.
It is. So we have implemented a few things to get us through this transition of construction because we have to be convenient and we have to provide a good customer experience in Chattanooga because we're a small market. And so we have implemented a shuttle service that will go over to an off-site economy lot to get us through. And we've also implemented a valet service. So valet parking had never been offered at Chattanooga, and that just started in November. So we think that'll help.
So what's driving all that? I mean, why? I mean, is it population growth in this? I mean, it's some of it's due to your great marketing and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, what that air travel? I mean, it don't matter what airport you go to, right? They're 2 things. They're always crowded.
Yes.
And there's always some kind of construction going on.
Yes.
Right. No matter where you go. Right. It's kind of like the interstate system. No matter where you go, it's always crowded.
Yes.
There's always construction going on. So what is it that drives that here locally?
I mean, I think for us locally, it is growth in our region. I think that's always going to be a factor. And as we continue to grow, we're going to see that at the airport. Honestly, I think a lot of, people tell me all the time, oh, you guys are doing a great job at the airport. It's not us. I mean, we are working hard. But the community is really starting to take ownership of our airport. And, we have tried to help educate the community, as you said. The more people use the service, the more service we will get. And I truly believe that a lot of people in Chattanooga and our surrounding regions are taking that to heart, and they are utilizing our airport more and more, and that is resulting in us seeing more service.
So we have, in Tennessee, we have what, 5
commercial service
airports? You've got Memphis, Nashville, Chattanooga, Knoxville, and Tri-Cities.
Correct.
Right? How do y'all have to coordinate things, or do you leave it up to the airlines to coordinate things? Everybody kind of works their own thing, or do y'all coordinate with each other?
I mean, as far as air service development, everyone does their own things. We're all competing. All airports are competing for the same airlines, and the airlines have very limited number of assets that they can put in your market, and so we're all competing for the same airplanes. Now, as a state, the 5 airports, we actually have really great relationships. We communicate, we share ideas. So I think we have a really good partnership amongst our airports. But ultimately, we're all competing for the same air service.
Yeah. Is there when I go to the Chattanooga Airport, see, I did it, right? when I go to the Chattanooga Airport, I mean, one of the reasons for going there is that I can get through security like quickly, right? Is there value in maintaining yourself as a small airport, so to speak, versus trying to become a hub? I mean, because if you become a hub like Atlanta or something, there's just so much traffic coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of where we sort of see ourselves? That's what we are. We are not a hub. We are this smaller kind of destination-based.
Absolutely. And we're in a very unique position because we are 2 hours from Nashville and Atlanta. So we're in the middle of two very large airports. And two airports that are continuing to grow. And so we have to find what our niche is, and that's going to be a smaller airport that offers convenience. You know, we want to continue to improve the number of nonstops that we offer. We currently have 15 nonstop destinations, and we want to continue to improve on that because people ultimately love to fly nonstop. So we were.
Yes, we do.
Yes,
we do.
Yes. So we're going to continue to work in that regard. But it is very challenging to sit in the middle of two very large airports like Nashville and Atlanta.
And I suppose Knoxville would have kind of the same issue to some degree.
Absolutely.
So, you know, we've kind of talked about how the airlines have a lot to do with the operations, but air travel is expensive. I mean, not because as a customer it's expensive, but air travel as an operation is expensive, right? And running an airport is expensive. I guess labor's part of it, but really probably the capital of running an airport is really a lot of money. Your revenue sources seem to be, at least what we've talked about here today, seem to be what you generate from the airlines that use the facility. I'm assuming the federal government gives you some money.
Yes.
I know the state government has invested heavily in our commercial airports, and we have a whole mathematical equation for how we fund our commercial airports. And the state may be the largest investor.
Oh yes,
in
absolutely,
the airports.
Absolutely.
What do local governments do? What do like the city of Chattanooga or Hamilton County government? What do they do with the airport?
So we don't get any direct funding from our city or our county. Obviously, we gain revenue from the people who live in the city and the county, but those two entities don't fund the airport directly. I
want to because that could be when you say you get revenue from people in the community, you mean people who are buying tickets to get on your airplane. It's
the people who use the airport.
Yeah.
You could say that we get funding from our communities from those individuals that are utilizing our services.
So you've been at the now. So for people who don't know, I'm chairman of finance for the Senate, and I know we as a state we believe that airports are both FBO or the I'll call them private airports as well as the commercial airports are key drivers of economic development in communities. So we recognize that. You've been with the airport now for how many years?
I just started my 29th year.
Okay. In 29 years, has the city or the county ever contributed to the airport financially? To your recollection?
No, not direct funding, no.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because for those listeners who don't know, we talked earlier in the show about the airport authority was set up by state government. And actually, the state doesn't have anything to do with naming who's on the airport authority. We actually give that responsibility to the city mayor, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's correct.
And so you have the city mayor. This is my axe to grind, not yours. You have the city mayor who is appointing all of the members to the authority, and yet the city's making no financial contribution whatsoever. On the other side, you have the state of Tennessee, which created the authority, which is one of the primary funders of the airport, who has no say in the board's operation of the airport. It's a sort of an interesting dynamic we've created for ourselves.
Yes. And honestly, we could not do what we do at the airport or any airport in the state without the funding that we get from the state.
Well, and obviously we recognize that. And of course, now that's tricky because to some degree, the state's funding of airports is kind of like the way we fund roads and bridges. We use the fuel tax and things like that to help generate the revenue that we then have an equation of this much goes to the to the privates and this much goes to the commercial. And we, every few years, have to kind of tweak that equation to kind of keep the math right. As a matter of fact, I think over the past maybe 3 to 5 years, we've been actually putting in a direct appropriation to help offset some of the cost of running the airports.
Absolutely. And that's really what has allowed us to continue to grow our infrastructure at all of the airports in the state, is that additional funding. It's been tremendously helpful.
So I'm assuming when we are looking at a major employer moving into the area, or for that matter, an existing employer, because people don't realize most of our economic development does not come from new people. Most of our economic development comes from businesses that are in the community that are growing. I'm assuming in that all those different kind of conversations that at some point you get pulled into the conversation of what are you going to do for us at the airport, because we're trying to expand. How do we get things or people from point A to point B?
Yes. So when I have had conversations with the chamber in the past, that is typically the number one question that's asked of the chamber for recruitment of new business or businesses that are here. What is the airport doing? How is it growing? How can it support our businesses? And so that's why it's really important for us to stay keyed in with all of those businesses so that we understand where people want to go, because we know that the airport and the access that we provide is going to be a huge deciding factor for these companies on whether they want to continue to invest or whether they want to invest in the first place.
What about the other side of airports? So if you were to look at the Memphis airport, you might not see as much passenger traffic in and out of the Memphis airport, but you would see a ton of commercial traffic carrying products here, there, and yonder from FedEx. What's the balance of Chattanooga in terms of, do we do a lot of that kind of air travel as well, where product is coming in or product's going out?
We don't have a ton of cargo coming into Chattanooga. We do have one 757 that comes every night from Memphis. So we do have some cargo operations. We also have some charter cargo operations.
Does that equation work the same way? Do they pay you by the pound or something? Okay,
yes.
Well, that's a pretty good guess. Again, accounting coming through.
See, you know it.
I should be working in the airline business. I missed my call.
Are you looking for a job?
Ask me in August. We have a primary, and we'll see. Or maybe again in November, you can ask me, and I might be looking for a job at that point. Yeah.
Honestly,
I don't know if your telegrapher, somebody's told you something that I don't know, but now I'm getting nervous about the whole thing.
I don't think you have anything to be nervous about.
Yeah, that's what they tell everybody, as they walk them to the gallows. Yeah.
But no, we do have some cargo operations, and since Volkswagen came to town several years ago, we have more charter cargo operations. So if something goes bump in the night out there at the plant, they may have to fly in cargo. So we do see more of that, but we are primarily.
What about military?
We do see quite a bit of military.
I'm trying to I think people need to kind of think in their mind or have an image in their head of the full expanse, the full universe of what an airport does in a community.
Yes.
We've had presidents land there,
Absolutely.
vice presidents land there. Bo Watson landed there.
Yes.
We've had, and military use it for, I'm assuming, training and stuff.
They do. They'll come in, they'll fly in for training. Sometimes they just do touch and goes where they never actually stop. They just touch down on the runway and then take back off. So we have military, we have general aviation, so private and corporate airplanes, and then we have commercial service, and then we have the cargo. But we also have, when I was talking about the corporate aircraft, the state was very instrumental in bringing Westar to Chattanooga, Westar Aviation.
Yeah, most people never heard of Westar. Tell it. It's a great story.
Oh my gosh, it is an amazing story for Chattanooga and for the Chattanooga Airport in particular. So Westar came to Chattanooga back in 2015. And when they were, at that point in time, they were looking for an East Coast presence. They were in East Alton, Illinois.
Now, Westar, they repair, I won't get the terminology right here, but they repair, refurbish.
Yes.
Because planes have a very strict
Yes.
maintenance cycle.
Absolutely.
And if you miss your time, then you get grounded,
Yeah.
right? So the engines have to be rebuilt. Everything has to be redone on a very strict timeline, and
Yes.
they're in that business.
They are, and they're actually the number one MRO in the country. Maintenance, maintenance, repair, and overhaul. So they had a base in East Alton, Illinois, and Grand Junction, Colorado. They were looking for an East Coast base, and so Chattanooga came up on their radar. They came down and visited. They needed some particular legislation approved in order to get them to move.
Yes, I'm familiar with that.
Yes, and so the state was really the key in bringing them to Chattanooga. And so I think that being
and they've continued to grow.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
So they started with one hangar. They are currently operating out of 9 facilities at the Chattanooga Airport. They are trying to build another hangar.
Don't say their last.
Yeah,
Just
it's not
another.
And once they get that hangar built, they will employ 650 people on the Chattanooga Airport, which is tremendous.
Yeah, and they have a kind of their business. They have do they do like mid-sized planes? I remember when we were talking about the legislation and bringing this along.
Yes.
The types of their different facilities do different things for them, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They focus on different aircraft, and so in Chattanooga they have several aircraft. I wouldn't want to misspeak, but they have certain ones that they focus on in Chattanooga, and they're high end corporate airplanes.
Oh yeah, and they're busy. I mean, every time I'm out there, I don't know what you call a parking lot for planes, but their parking lot for planes is always full of planes waiting to go in. And if folks are ever fortunate enough to tour their facility, you can like eat off the floor because it is so clean. Yeah.
It's remarkable, and the service that they provide is just I feel very fortunate that we have that here in Chattanooga.
Yeah, they're a great company to invest. So the one that you left out
Yes.
that you may not have a lot to do with, though, they also have flight instruction
yes.
out there, right? Now, that's through
Crystal Air.
Crystal Air. Okay.
Yes, they do a great job. They've been on the airport my entire career. They've been there, and they continue to grow, showing, they have lots of young people and not so young people coming out to learn how to fly airplanes.
Yeah, I know my colleague in the House, Representative Michelle Renault.
Yes.
She and her husband are flight students, I guess that's what you call them. And she enjoys they enjoy the whole flight thing out there at the airport, which is really, really cool. And I think the reason for having that encompassing conversation is to see that airports are more economic engines than just the carriers coming in and coming out.
Absolutely.
That, having all these other business angles creates business opportunities for the community. And then when you have like a West Star, and I'm sure there are similar operations at other airports, then all of a sudden you have not just jobs available for people in the commuting kind of world,
Yes.
but also jobs for people in the repair and maintenance kind of world, which again, for the airline industry is very strictly regulated. And so it's like if you were in the car repair business and everybody had to take their car in at 100,000 miles or otherwise you couldn't drive it, it'd be a great business to be in because they're always going to have to bring it.
Yes.
Always going to have to bring it in.
You can't go past that oil change. You can't let it go. You got to get it in.
Yeah, and when I'm at 10,000 feet, I'm thankful that they've done that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now I think our airport has two runways, right?
Yes.
And those are determined by which one you use is determined by the air. I remember when we went out there and we visited with the air traffic controllers,
Yes.
and they were kind of explaining to us, the predominant wind blows from the south or something, and so most of the time planes land this way and take off this way because
Exactly.
the wind's blowing. But every now and then it shifts, and we
That's
got to
right.
have this other runway to do it.
That's right. Yes.
And y'all have to maintain those.
We do.
And I assume a runway is expensive, A, to maintain, and it B, expensive to build.
Absolutely. Very expensive.
Is there a requirement that you know of to take a runway up ever so often? Like you've got to completely redo it ever so often?
What we do is we actually have teams that will come in and they'll evaluate where we are. Is the airport? Is the runway in a situation where it's it needs to be repaired at this point. So our current runway was actually built, it was rehabilitated back in the end of the 90s. So right at the beginning of my career. And so we have talked about the rehabilitation process again, but our numbers keep coming back very strong, that our runway pavement is strong and it's in good condition.
Good.
So every year we have to go through an evaluation
Yeah.
to see where the pavement strength is. And if it's within the certain boundaries established by the FAA, then we will postpone until the next year.
Yeah, I mean, the airline industry, for good reason, I mean, it's really heavily regulated, right? I mean, on the safety side of the equation, it's really heavily regulated. Is our airport runway, I know it's big enough to handle Air Force One because they've landed it here. Are there planes that can't come here?
There are some airplanes that we would not prefer to come here. Any airplane that would ever serve Chattanooga on a scheduled basis would certainly.
Is there a plane? I mean, that I guess in an emergent situation, any plane will land anywhere that it can be.
Yes, in an emergency situation. But yes, there are some aircraft types that we would not prefer to land in Chattanooga, if we can help it.
So one of the things that you've done out there, and I know we're getting near the close here, but one thing that you've done out there that I do want to take a minute to talk about is. You are trying to recreate airports as a destination place rather than just a place where people go to travel.
Yes.
Right? I mean, you are trying to, and you're doing that by you've created a new playground/park.
Yes.
Which sits, I guess, kind of towards the end of or the beginning of depends on which way the wind's blowing.
Exactly.
The runway.
Yes.
Because part of our airport's heritage is that people used to go to the airport just to watch planes land and take off. And then with security and all that kind of stuff, that kind of went away and it wasn't a destination place anymore. Y'all are trying to recreate that.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the park there, because I think that's really a novel way of bringing particularly children back to the aeronautics airline and creating an interest in some children of, hey, maybe like you, that'd be really cool to work at an airport.
Absolutely. Right? So we have had this conversation about a park for years, and we really can't, the FAA heavily restricts what we can use our funding for. And so we were trying to figure out how could we fund this. So we saw some of the Blue Cross Blue Shield Healthy Place parks around town. And so my VP of operations took this project on, and
Well, you're clearly not a political person, because a political person would have taken credit for the idea. And you've given the credit to one of your staff, but go ahead.
Well, I have a great team, so I want them to have some credit. So he took this, ran it to ground, and Blue Cross Blue Shield, we really honestly didn't think that we would compete very well because there are other ones in Chattanooga and they're dispersing them across the state. Sure. And we put the proposal in, and I mean, honestly, you've been to the site. When you see the site and you look and see this is where people are going to gather and watch planes land, I mean, it's just a home run. And so Blue Cross agreed to partner with us. And really our intent is exactly what you said. We want to restore the love of aviation to our community, to young kids. There's great careers that you can have in the airport, in aviation world. And we want people, especially young kids, to be able to see that firsthand. And so if we bring them in as kids and they're able to have those fond memories, then when they become adults, then they may go back in that direction. I mean, so many people talk about coming to the airport and the observation deck that we had previously, and they have such fond memories of that, and we want to create those same memories again.
Well, and from a economic and community development perspective, if you've got a company like Westar that's on your campus and you bring young people out and they grow up around that,
Yes.
there becomes a natural affinity for, well, maybe that's where I want to work. And of course, we always want our local businesses, even though their home may be in a distant state, we want our home businesses to hire homegrown people. And one of the ways you do that is constantly cultivating that connection.
That's right.
To the airport. Now, when is the grand opening for this park? Because I'm super excited about it.
Yes. So we don't have the final timeline from Blue Cross yet, but we're expecting it to open this summer. So it's going to be a very quick construction
And it's going to have an
project.
aviation theme behind
Yes.
it and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, we're going to have a static airplane displayed. That Westar, it was a donation from someone who no longer used the airplane. It wasn't. It's not flyable at this point, and so it's not what they call airworthy. So Westar is actually going to paint the airplane to match the aesthetic of the park, and there'll be a control tower, little playground as part of the playground. It's going to be really cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a great hit for the airport
We
and
think so
really
too.
for the community particularly because again, some of us when we were children, we kind of grew up at the airport. And it's interesting to see that coming full circle. And I know when you had your groundbreaking for it, there were a bunch of folks. Of course, everybody knows that's from here that I was born here, raised here. I'll be buried here. I was one of those that was out there to see it, partly just because it's a great return to the past, great nostalgia. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank
This
you
has
for
been
having
great.
me.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. I hope everyone learned a little bit more about air travel and how airports work, and most importantly, how important airports are in our overall economic and community strategy in this region and really all across the state of Tennessee. This has been Tennessee State Senator Bo Watson with another episode of Tennessee Today. If you enjoyed today's episode, or even if you didn't enjoy today's episode, please hit the subscribe button. It helps us to promote the show and get it out, and we'll see you next time.